On the beaten paths of life, we seek freedom. We seek truth. Let's take a moment and explore God's Word, and together we will find God's truth.
Hi there, and welcome again to Moments of Truth. These are the episodes where we take time to discover God's truth, and as always, I'm trusting that you're growing stronger every day. This is the first episode for the year 2021, and we're privileged. I'm really happy about it, and God has taken us through a very tough year, a challenging year in the year 2020, and quite an interesting start to the year 2021. That being said, whatever your context is, what I want us to talk about today is the word endurance. Endurance, years ago, I had a situation I was swimming, and I had an instructor come to me. I didn't know he was an instructor at the time. He came up to me and he said, he was talking about the challenges he saw I was having in the water. And I said, no, I can swim. And what he said to me is, yeah, you can swim, but you know what? You don't have endurance. And that's something that I've discovered applies to so many parts, so many aspects of life, where you know how to do something, you know how to walk, you know how to run, you know how to exercise, but to be able to keep on doing it for long periods, that requires endurance. But guess what? Life by itself throws a lot of stuff at us, and the more life throws stuff at us, it's the more tired we get, the more the struggle seems to continue, if I put it that way. Now, whether you're riding high now in a great period of life, or whether you are going through a period where you're just trying to find exactly where the next step is, either way, it's important to take a moment and realize what God has to say on the subject of endurance. Now, the Apostle Paul, in writing to the Philippian church in chapter 4, he made a statement that we've used many, many times. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And indeed, many of us have used it, and many of us have applied ourselves to things that we want to accomplish. And it's been absolutely great to see God come through. The thing is, most of the times, or if not most, but many of the times when we apply that, we apply it to things that we want. We apply it to things that we want to do, things that we want to experience. And it's interesting, if you examine Paul's context, when he was using that, he wasn't just talking about things that he wanted to do. He actually cited earlier in the chapter a whole lot of stuff that he was dealing with over periods of time, referring to periods in his life where it was so challenging, and then said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So what about you? Regardless of the age that you're at, you would have had a certain period of life behind you where you can look back and see what you've done. Some of those things you would have enjoyed doing, and some of those periods would be remembered as, well, you don't exactly want to remember them, and you would remember how challenging they were. But here's the thing, life will continue to throw challenges at us, and we need to be able to depend on God to take us through those challenges. We live in an age now where all truth seems to be relative. If it's true for me, well, it's true for me. And many would say if it's true for them, it's true for them. And which is why it's so very important for us to have God's perspective. Because when Jesus was in the garden, I think in Garden of Gethsemane, I think John 17, while he was praying, he said to God, he said to the Father, he said, sanctify them by your word. And then he said, your word is truth. And the truth of your matter, the truth of my life, is God is the one who knows the best plan. God is the one who can give us the strength. God is the one who can enable us, which is what Paul was referring to when he said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Now, that same apostle Paul, in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, he was talking. He said, 3 times I asked the Lord, because a thorn was given me in my flesh. And, theologians from all ages and all times have speculated as to what the thorn may have been. We're not going to get into that now. What we're talking about is the fact that here was something that Paul wanted to be rid of. Sounds familiar? Stuff in your life that you want to be rid of, or a period in life, or a season of life that you wish could just end. And he said he went to God 3 times, and God said each time, my grace is sufficient for you, and my strength is made perfect in your weakness. So God was saying to him, you may feel weak, but what you need is endurance. And that can only be acquired in my strength. We cannot do it, my friend, my brother, my sister, you and me. We're really finite. We cannot do it. But in God, we can. I want to encourage you today. Don't quit. Don't give up. Continue to press through. You may be dreaming about something that God has put inside of you, and the devil wants to just block it on every turn. Take time to discover what God's will is, and make sure that as long as it's God's will, continue to press for it. Because as long as it is God's sovereign will for you, you can be sure it is for your benefit. God says he has a good plan for you. And indeed, you are the one to work it. The devil will be trying to be disruptive of it, which is why you need endurance. Because he's going to be disruptive and disruptive and disruptive, wanting you to quit. Stay strong. In November of 1980, that's a long time ago, there was a fight, a boxing match between a boxer by the name of Roberto Duran and Sugar Ray Leonard. And Duran had come into the match. They were both champions in their own right. Duran had not lost, I think, 30 of the fights before. 20 or 30, I'm not sure. But what's important about that match, why I want to refer to it, is 7 rounds had passed, and the boxers were exchanging, fairly evenly. And as the 8th round began, Roberto Duran quit. People have speculated as to all sorts of reasons. What would make this guy quit? Well, what's more interesting for our conversation today is, in spite of his legacy, in spite of his winning record at the time, many still remember him for quitting. Well, we're not talking about how other people view you. Sure, I can almost hear you saying that, and you're right. What's most important is how God views you and how you view yourself. You must view yourself through God's lenses. And God is willing to enable you to become all that he desires for you to be. Don't quit. Depend on God's strength to keep you, to cause you to go through, to achieve his will, even in your weakness. So those words can be true in your context. God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. It's an absolute joy when we have these opportunities to share with you. So I do trust that the little that we've shared today, I do trust that it has reached your heart. Do me one favor. Feel free, share the link. Share the link that it may be a blessing to somebody else. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please consider subscribing. And while you're at it, hit that like button. Okay? So until the next time we come together for Moments of Truth, remember, depend on God to keep you. Let his strength fuel the endurance that you will continue to express, the endurance that you will continue to experience as a result of his strength in spite of your weakness. God bless you. Until next time.